Marketing That Works is the podcast for business owners who want to move their brand forward so that they can bring in more sales and clients. I'm Danielle Harris, and I'm bringing you what I know from more than 12 years of experience in traditional and online marketing. I have created marketing strategies for businesses of all sizes, from multi-million-dollar corporations to early-stage online businesses. Remember, some marketers chase fads. I believe in mastering the fundamentals. You have got to understand the people you want to serve. It isn't something that is a nice to have. It is fundamental to creating marketing that works to get you new clients. So today, I've brought on a guest that is a living example of this. I'm going to be talking with LaShaunique Plummer, who is an HR and career leadership coach. And we have such an amazing episode. We talk about what is needed to really connect with your audience. And we start off really with the importance of knowing your own story and your own perspective. We talk about the struggles that come up when you're wanting to share online. And then we get into how sharing your story isn't just to talk or to brag, it's truly in service of the people that you want to help. And then the two of us talk about how knowing and understanding the people you serve makes it that much easier to know what to share about yourself. Because again, it's about connection. So go take some notes or listen once, go back through and then listen again to jot down whatever it is that you missed. And please enjoy this episode with myself and HR and career leadership coach, LaShaunique. Hello and welcome to the Marketing That Works podcast. I am so excited to have our guest here today. And really, when we're here at Marketing That Works, we really believe in the power of your brand story, which is why I love bringing on people that exactly know what it is that they do, how they help people, and how their experience is really going to be a light and a shining example of the possibility that's out there. So today, I'm here with LaShaunique. I can't wait to hear more about her. But before we get any further, Marketing That Works, we believe in the power of story. So when LaShaunique comes on here today, I would love for her to tell a bit of her brand story to give us an introduction as to what it is that she does and how she impacts people.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thanks for the introduction. Excited to share my brand story. And that's the beautiful part, right? When you do something you really love. So for me, I'm LaShaunique and I help people secure HR roles, even if they don't have an HR degree or certification in 90 days. And so I am really passionate about HR, having a diverse group of people that is supporting the function because we truly need that in corporate America. And that was my story. So I pivoted to HR in 90 days about 6 years ago. It wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, but I did a lot of work in that 90 days. And I realized pretty quickly that the formulas that I had and that I use and the frameworks that I use was really the success factor to what helped me pivot. And I started to help people transition and realizing that people were taking 6 months. And I even heard somebody say 5 years at one point. I was like, oh, no. Insert me, right? Let me help the people. And so I've been doing that for a while now, and I just love helping my people pivot into the world of HR.
I love that. I love that. No, that was your experience that you have, and now you're realizing that I can help other people do the same thing. And so as we start to go in a little bit more about you and like your background and story, really as an HR professional, I'm sure that you hear all about, okay, you got to put your best foot forward. And as you're growing your business and helping other people get into HR roles, I'm sure people are just like, oh, I need to be very polished. Need to have that very prim and proper version of myself. So with that being the case, as you are navigating the urge to, show up online and show who you are and the possibilities that are out there, like how or have you struggled with showing yourself, your personality, any parts of yourself as you navigate these roles?
Mm, what a beautiful question. So when I first started, from my business perspective, when I first started online, it was nerve-wracking. I was like, what am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to show up? I tried to make these like pretty frames to show up in, and it really fell flat, to be honest. Like looking back, it's super cringe. So yes, I did struggle a little bit. I remember my first live. I was like, how am I really going to show up and really be me? And also, that was on Instagram. And then when I made the pivot to LinkedIn and like knowing that like my work people were going to be watching me and like I had, having a voice and was I going to sound silly? Were people going to say anything? My husband had thoughts as well. And he was like, I have a colleague that's really active and people talk about him and be careful. And so those thoughts kind of started to creep in a little bit and affect how I wanted to show up. But after a while, like it just takes practice to start to like find your voice, sharing your thoughts and sharing like your thought leadership. And after, the more you do it, the more you really just, and people start to resonate with your thoughts because they need you and they need your thought leadership. The more the other people just really start to fade into the background.
Mm.
And I do teach people that as well from an even from an HR perspective when they are pivoting, being careful to look at a job description, and I feel like your people will relate to this as well, but looking at a job description and feeling like you need to be this cookie cutter thing and then replicating that and then trying to like fit that out, right? And then thinking that that will work when you're not your authentic self, whether it's applying for a job, whether it's showing up online, people read the room and it just falls flat because people are picking up on those things subconsciously.
No, and that's a great point. And I know personally for myself, when I was on LinkedIn in particular, when I first started and decided that I was going to have my business and that I wanted to show up and start promoting it, one of the things that happened to me was I posted something and then someone from my own HR said, brought me into the office with my boss, and it wasn't like anything was quote unquote bad, but it just
Yeah.
shocked me, and I saw like, oh, people are in fact watching. So for you in particular, when you heard your husband say that, oh, people talk about this and other things that are going on, what were some of the first things that you did that helped you to ease into actually showing up as yourself? I know that you said that it took practice and bit by bit, but what were some of the things that really helped you start doing that?
Yeah. I think it's having a community of other entrepreneurs, right, to like talk these things out with really helped me. Also, having a therapist helped me as well because you have two containers at the end of the day where you can go and you can talk these things out because when other people's thoughts start to creep into your mind, you start to think of them as fact. And that is not always the case because at the end of the day, like people are always going to have thoughts. Always.
Mm-hmm.
But really, when you start to get to a place where it's like my thoughts and my values matter, and like I need to honor those, otherwise I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to feel fulfilled. I'm not going to reach the people, the hundreds and thousands of people that need me. That was like the practical things that I did to start to unpack those thoughts and push past those thoughts. Also, I mean, naturally, like I'm kind of a rebel. When people tell me like, I mean, I have so many stories, but like when people tell me like, oh, that's not the normal way to do something, or that's hard, or you're going to be looked at differently, or you shouldn't start it that way, or you have to start from box A in order to be successful. Like I kind of always like watch me work. So it's kind of a mindset, where you gotta just ignore the noise sometimes.
Yeah. And I really want to make sure that I highlight the fact that you said that you worked with your therapist and that worked in community. And I know that myself, as I work with a lot of individuals, coaches, people that are starting to grow businesses and are getting more visible. And a lot of times, a lot of women of color too, when they start showing up and talking about themselves, something and a phrase that I hear a lot of times is don't put your business out there. You don't have to go out there and share everything. And one of the things that I notice and realize as a marketing consultant is that there are a lot of like personal things like I can go through and share all the strategy parts and bits of it, but at the same time there's a lot of human elements to that, which is why I went through and decided like let me learn some other tools and resources because I am not dealing with people that are just like, oh yeah, like I'm a business and I don't have feelings and I just like go and do the things that are suggested to me to go and work. I'm dealing with humans that have insecurities and that have different voices that are going on telling them that, oh, you shouldn't do this, you should do this. I needed to make sure that I was hearing for the whole person as they were going through and putting that out there. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that it's not just like, oh, okay, yeah, went out there and like I just practiced. Like, no, you needed the support of people around you to make sure that that happened. So I'm glad that you mentioned that and you brought that up. Um, so when we're talking about showing up as yourself and sharing things, you talked about like your husband and the support and what the things that he said. I know that you also bring up other like personal aspects when you're talking about your business and promoting yourself. How did you navigate doing that? I know we talked about like personality and like things in practice like that, but how did you navigate? Okay, do I talk about this? Do I not talk about this? I'm curious to hear about that.
Yeah, that's a constant conversation with myself for sure. So I think part of the place that I've gotten to, like, I know I have certain boundaries, right? My husband is very private, so I'm very conscious of what I share as it relates to our relationship. He also, just being protective too of our space, like, we don't really communicate when we're traveling and things like that. So we have our certain boundaries. We keep those. But I think, and then also, I've also had family members that have actually had thoughts about different posts as well. So it's interesting. So you have to navigate like not only my thoughts, but the thoughts of others that are seeing it, and then also the thoughts of like my job community as well. Because like you said, and like we already mentioned, on a constant basis, whenever I was like meeting people in my job, they're like, "Oh my God, I saw your LinkedIn post," even though they didn't like it or comment or anything. They're like, "I saw your LinkedIn post." So it is a constant thing. And again, you will continue to question what you should share and what you shouldn't share. But I go back to, what does my audience really need to hear from me? What is going to help them break through to get, for my audience going into HR? What's going to help them break through the mindsets that are really holding them back? What's going to help them be successful? What's going to help them help their clients, right? When they're supporting organization, because at the end of the day, that's my goal and that's what I'm here to do. And sometimes it means like being vulnerable or sharing stories that I might have a little resistance to. And so the question I ask myself is it a little resistance or is it just a personal private preference? If it's a personal private preference, okay, great. If it's a boundary, great. But if I'm just being a little resistant because like it's vulnerable, then that's when I kind of have to challenge myself a little bit and again, bring it to coaching, bring it to my community and get the support I need to break through those thoughts that might be holding me back. But the communities they love, I mean, the results show for themselves. My number of impressions, the people that subscribe for my newsletter, the people that are booking sales calls, they are reading and they are relating to the personal stories. I share things like how much I hate small talk. I couldn't believe that
I
post did
remember
so
that post
good.
from you.
People loved that, and I was like, but it was a feeling, and I was like, are people going to hate this? I was like, I don't know, like, am I alone? But that did really well. Sharing vulnerable things about a time when a manager made me cry in the bathroom, and I had got my first migraine. I mean, those things are really vulnerable, and it'd be easy not to share them and overlook them. But those are the posts that actually do really well and help people start to shift, you know, their thoughts and what they're thinking.
Yeah. And you know what? That's such a great segue because it's really great that you're in touch with your own story and your own experiences. And I know that's something that I really help my clients go through is being able to comb through and see the value in the stories that they tell. But the point of telling your stories isn't just to say, like, oh, yep, this is a thing that happened to me. To your point, it's more about how are you connecting to the people that you're wanting to serve. The goal of telling your story is to connect with people. So when you're in that process of trying to understand the people that you're trying to serve, how do you do that? How do you recognize like, oh, this is something that my people experience? Is it something that you're studying? Is it something that you're being intentional with? What is your process for making sure that the stories that you tell are going to resonate with the people that you're trying to help?
Yeah. Yeah. So at first I was really bad at it. Like I was just telling these stories and some of them were falling flat. But the thing that pivoted for me or what made the difference is when the reason I decided to tell a story or I ended up connecting it with a, a client quote. or client, whatever the client was saying to me or people were saying to me. And I would know that, right, during one-on-one sessions, or I would go back and I would look at things like intake forms that my clients were saying, or I would go back and I would re-listen to a sales call. And as I would go through all those things, right, I would, take my notes, and then I would see a quote and I'm like, oh my God, like I remember when something similar happened to me. Here's a story that I need to share, and kind of helping my client understand that they're not alone, right? They're not alone, and here are practical ways to get past the things that are holding you back. And so the reason I told the whole story around, I hate small talk is because I know a lot of people really struggle with networking. And
Mm-hmm.
networking is a scary thing. And I hear that a lot. I don't want to talk to strangers on the internet. And I'm like, the strangers on the internet got all the tea and all the resources, right? So how can I help them understand that, there are aspects to networking that absolutely suck, totally. But there are also aspects that I can relate to. But here, even though I hate small talk, here is how I actually effectively break past that, right? And so that was why I intentionally chose that, because I know they could relate.
Mm. And I just want to double down on that because that's something that I tell people a lot. Like the information that you already have right in front of you. That's why I decided to offer a brand new offer where it's all about pulling through all of that information because it is gold. Like
Fire.
like as you said, the posts that did the best were ones where you related it back to what people were actually saying. And you
Saying
need to
and
take the time to do
feeling.
that. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that is if you are not getting this service from Danielle, I have seen some of the results that things you're pulling out client quotes, pulling out all what your clients are saying, reading and skimming through the things that people don't have time to do or don't want to do. You need to get that. That is a great thing, because I did it and it does take some time, right? But to have someone that can give you those insights is a beautiful offer. What a smart idea.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like to your point, I'm like not just saying it to be saying, like you are a person that you've seen the benefits and the results of that, of really listening to your people and what it is that they need. And it's all out of service. It's not out of like, oh yeah, because I just want to talk about myself and talk about how I hate small talk. Because what's the point of that? Like
Right, right.
who cares otherwise? But it's more of like, oh yes, I can relate to that. I see someone in a position that I want to be in. I want to transition into these roles that I right now may not have access to or have that necessarily a background experience in. Networking is going to be one of the ways that I'm going to be able to do that. And you showing that by example of how just like, I don't like this, but here are the ways that I navigate that helps people to be seen and then trust like, okay, well, like I have that same problem too. So if she can do it, maybe she can help me do it too. It's that type of relatability that's it's
Hmm.
going to take you so far.
Yeah. And I just want to double down, also triple down for your audience, right? Numbers, right? Because I'm a numbers girl. So my top three posts, I actually checked right before this, my top three posts on LinkedIn, because that's where I'm most active, all of them were direct sayings from my client that came straight off of a sales call or a I think they were mostly sales calls. And just to give you numbers, right? So the top one was 15,000 impressions, and that was only in the span of 2 weeks. That is a ton. That is a ton of impressions. And
Mm-hmm.
then from one of the posts, I think I got 4 sales calls booked in 2 days, which
Amazing.
is unheard of in my in
Amazing.
my experience.
And it's one of those things where it sounds really basic, but we're talking about like marketing that works. Like that's part of the marketing work that works. That's the behind the scenes, the real things that need to happen in order for it
Mhm.
to work. So we're kind of going, in that direction already. So like I want to we're here talking about marketing that's going to work. So as a career coach, let's even break it down even further of like what are the tactics that are working for you? How is it working? So we're starting off, you said that already you are on LinkedIn. Are you on any other platforms? What's working for you?
I mean, I test a little bit. I mean, right now I'm just trying to go kind of all in on one platform just to like maximize my energy. I did start out on Instagram. But I found that again, you want to find the platform where your people are at. And so for me, once I started to test LinkedIn, it was clear to me that that's a lot of where people in careers are, right? So
Hmm.
depending on your niche, right, you should be really thoughtful of where you're at. I was really sad though, if I'm being honest, because I love Instagram. It's just more beautiful. It's easier to use. But, I had to come to the conclusion. It was like, well, if you want to reach your people, you got to pick the platform that your people are mostly active on. And LinkedIn is beautiful because so if you are a career coach, highly recommend. Everybody's different though. Everybody's got their thing. You got to test it for your own audience. But people actually are happy to engage on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of activities and things in the DM. I've tested TikTok a little bit. I haven't found a groove there. I still kind of post on Instagram just to kind of keep it a little bit up to date. I'm hoping secretly one day it'll go mini viral, but I don't know. And that way I can live on both platforms. But that's mostly where I'm at. And I started off with a lot of like pretty, right? Because I was like aesthetics and like beautiful carousels and
Yes.
yeah, those don't work.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's get into it. What are the types of content that no is working for you that you're just like,
Okay,
okay,
so
this is it. No, we already know that the things that are coming and being pulled from what your clients are saying. So you
mm-hmm.
have what it is that they're saying. How is
Yeah.
it being received the best?
Yeah. So again, and this concept I think is hard and it took me a while to understand, but the reason the client quotes work or the things work is because the language immediately is what they're saying is what they're thinking, right? You're reading their minds and then they are more intrigued, right? And then they trust you and then they want to book a call with you, right? So be careful. It's kind of a trap for us people because when we're experts, we start to use expert language.
Mm-hmm.
So just be very careful. If you're a money coach, right? If you start, getting into the details of investments, you lost somebody. If I started to get into the details of networking and the intricacies of networking, because I love it and I nerd out and I geek out, I really, really lose people. So what works is just being plain, being clear, using the exact language. I can't say that enough. So that's the first thing. That was like the biggest pivot for me and where I started to really triple my client, people reaching out to me for sales calls. And then again, just the combination of types of stories that you're sharing. So definitely people want to learn about you. They want to know and connect with you. They don't want to think you're a robot. So personal stories definitely work, especially on LinkedIn. That is really popular and really supported on LinkedIn. Like people want to cheer you on. People loved my wedding. They loved all the beautiful pictures from my wedding. They loved my honeymoon pictures. They loved those. And again, with my husband's permission, we shared what was appropriate. And then also again, stories that are relevant to your niche. So like I've already shared, the things around networking, the things around interviewing, the things. So just making sure it's really relevant. And then I would say the last thing that works really well is your overall thought leadership. So we fall into the trap of like a lot of like this is exactly how you should do something, but it's really people are really wanting to understand how are your thoughts different? How are you as a career coach different? And how are you going to help me in a different way? Because everybody, in the career space could say, I help you network, right? But again, it's more about how do you take it back to exactly your style and how you will help the client get through their problem with your specific skill sets and thoughts.
Mm. And I think that we could go on a whole nother tangent with thought leadership, just because I think that there are a lot of people that have thoughts of, I am not super original. This is not based off of anything like brand new intellectual property. Really, for me, I think that when you're combining the fact that you're sharing your own personal values, you're sharing your own personality. Like, if you want some more context on that, go back to episode 3 where I'm talking about the elements of a brand story. But if you're pulling in those different elements of, okay, my background, I'm talking about my personality, my values, if I'm being a bit vulnerable, when you are then talking about your opinions on things, all of those things are really giving more weight to your thought leadership on it. Or maybe it's just a way that hasn't been described like anyone else. It's the same thing that other people are talking about, but it's with your own unique spin and perspective of that. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that also makes a new idea. Like people talk about, business coaches talk about launching all the time. They're talking about like, okay, you need to talk about things, X amount of time in advance. But if you talk about and you frame it in a way that other people aren't necessarily doing it, you're talking about the same thing, but you put your own unique spin and words and phrasing on it. That's your thought leadership on it. I think
But
a
I
lot of
think
people
people
think that.
get
No, yeah, I just think that people think that they like have to like reinvent wheels on something and have to be like so groundbreaking. And I don't think it's necessarily that deep. I think it's really just putting out like, what's your opinion? What are you willing to take a stand on and owning that? But I'm curious your
yeah.
thoughts about that.
No, I mean, I just totally, I mean, like I said, like you said, it could be a whole nother podcast with thought leadership. Because I also challenge my clients too as they are pivoting, and I ask them, like what's your high value that you're going to bring to the role, right? And because we need to articulate that, we need to articulate your value, and it's the same thing in marketing. You're articulating what you bring to the table, why you think what you think, and that's why your stories and stuff is so pertinent because it's going to help. It's what informs why you think what you think, right? And so I just think people really underestimate themselves, right? We're especially, women of color, we really underestimate the power of our words and our thoughts. And at the end of the day, it goes back to me. The more you talk, the more you get it out. The more you will recognize that people need to hear what they need to hear what you have to say. And until you do it, if you keep it in you, you'll never get that feedback and that two-way street. So until you do it, you won't feel that buzz, you won't feel that excitement, you won't get the engagement from the audience that you're missing to not validate because you don't need validation, boo. Like, but to help you understand that your thoughts and your words have power.
Absolutely. And this is coming from like from me in particular. I always thought that I wasn't the person that had those types of things. I always thought like, well, these other people, they're cooler, they have a cooler story,
Mm.
they're more interesting. Like who wants to hear from me? Like I'm regular schmegular. Like why like why? Like that was my thought, but it wasn't until I started sharing bits and pieces and people were just like, "Ooh, that's interesting." And
That's
I will say like
different.
that
Yeah.
initial validation was like, "Okay, well maybe people aren't thinking the same way that I am." And it does help, but you do have to put that out there. You need to start to say like, "You know what? This is something. It's a hill that I will die on." Maybe not die, but it's a hill
Right,
I'll
right.
fight for a
This is
good
my
bit
thought.
on.
Like nobody can tell. Like what? Like the star method, I think is so outdated, right? Like, and I feel like some people might want to fight me, but that's okay. But it's like you have little nuggets and thoughts that you're saying to yourself, the things that you're saying to your partner, to your friends, and you need to get out in the universe.
Yes. Now we went on a whole different tangent, but I think it
Yep.
was worthwhile and productive. Sinead, thank you so much for being on here today. As we wrap up, I want to have you share like if there's something that you want to make sure that people are walking away with after hearing this conversation with us. What is it that you want them to hear and know?
Yeah. We get so wrapped up in, wanting to have marketing that works, right? And so we get into our heads, I think, with like the algorithms and the pretty pictures and the pretty posts. But the basics is when you serve your clients and you listen to what they're saying and you use that in your marketing, that will work. It's as plain and simple as that. And I would want people to use that information in combination with the stories and the experience that they have and put it out into the world, boo. Just go and put it out there. Stop sitting on it.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Shanique, how can people keep in contact with you if they loved what you were saying and doing on today's episode?
Sure, for sure. I would love for people to connect with me on LinkedIn, LaShaunique Plummer. That's where I am most active and I share all my thought leadership and you can see all the posts that were working for me. If you're interested, all the ones we talked about. I also have a podcast, Balangize, where you can radically own your HR career. And so, if you're just interested in thoughts from an HR professional, if you're in the career world, definitely pop over. I also have a really popular episode that I think anyone can benefit from, where I talk about HR networking secrets. So I get a lot of feedback from people from every walk of life, and you can really take out nuggets on how you not only network if you're in the career world, but if you're an entrepreneur, how can you start to kind of network a bit and find more clients and find more consulting contracts and things like that. So it's really powerful, and it can also help you start to navigate the world of LinkedIn if you haven't been familiar. It'll give you a few nuggets there. But it's networking secrets, and I'm available on Spotify podcasts or Spotify, sorry, Spotify and Apple. So
Ooh,
find
that's
me over there.
good. No, and for people listening that are regular listeners, you know that I have thoughts about networking that you need to go out there. So
Mm,
listen to episode, I believe, 11 about networking on there. Then go to LaShaunique's episode about like how you can really supercharge that and do that, whether it's
yes.
in person and online, like tips for doing that. And I want to also recommend another episode if we're talking about, the elements of telling your story. That's episode 3 of this podcast. And also we talked a bit about owning what you say. That's in episode 5. You, you got some things to listen on to really like marinate
Yes,
on
y'all
this.
got a list. Y'all got a list.
But I want to thank you so much for being on here today. I'm going to make sure that all of those episodes that are mentioned are going to be linked in the show notes so you can go back and actually listen to them all and get access to them. Thank you so much for being with me today, for being with the audience, and yeah, go out there and tell your stories. And also listen to what the stories of the people that you're working with, you're trying to help, listen to those because they're going to be valuable. That's going to
Mm,
be how you're going to grow your business, and that's how you're going to create marketing that works.
yeah.
If you want more marketing that works right in your inbox, head to the show notes and sign up for the email list. You'll be the first to know how you can work with me on mastering your marketing.